What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boys, and you're here for another Season 3 premiere of the Facts Project. Today, as I do, I have our resident artist always with me, probably about like 3 times a year, Anthony Stokes. We are here to talk about one of my favorite projects of all of last year, Tap or Die 2.
Let's go. Let's get it.
And as we're speaking of it, I mean, you ain't really pop champagne. You've been popping Coronas.
Yeah.
So, but you've already achieved basically exceeding your expectations goal-wise for the campaign. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get funded in the first day, that's because it's a huge relief, right?
Yeah.
And even then, it's like you don't get nervous. I don't get nervous when it starts. I get nervous closer to the goal, bro, because you will be stuck at like there was one dude. I swear, we were $3 away from a funding one time. Like I was like, oh my, somebody just push it. Just right. Push it over, but you're done with that. So you can, I'm relaxing. I'm celebrating modestly until this weekend. But no, I mean, it's just a good accomplishment because when you look at the people that are really making noise on a platform, a lot of times they do fund in one day.
This is true. This is true, and that's always a great sign. And I know just from a podcast perspective, the last time that we spoke about this particular project, I don't know if it was like people's love of wrestling or the fact that there is a void of wrestling comics, probably since Due to Powerbomb.
Due to Powerbomb, yeah.
That was probably like the last wrestling comic that I've seen. So yeah, of course there was a void with that, and then it was like, okay, this is definitely something that just blew my mind because not only did it take in the aspect of wrestling, but would you honestly put it into the perspective that you utilized the genre of wrestling as an allegory for the comic industry?
Yeah. No, that was a big thing. So when I wrote Tap or Die at basically the peak of my frustration with the comic book industry. What was going on? I had a campaign that was struggling to get funded. I had a lot of people that were, I'm a boisterous, braggadocious voice in the space, and people were like, "Oh, they're saying you can't talk like this because you're new," but then would be like, "But you haven't done this, did that," and it's like, "Well, I'm new. Like, how would I have achieved these things that you speak of if I'm new?"
Right.
And really, at that point, it was kind of like, and I felt like, oh, I can't win. You know what I'm saying? Because they can kind of say whatever they want about me, but if I come back, then I'm doing drama, stuff like that. So yeah, it was an allegory for comics, like a major allegory for comics, and it's probably an allegory for any field that is gatekeeping. And unfortunately, in a lot of instances, comics are, comics are one of the ministries.
Do you feel like the industry isn't as accepting as people would perceive it to be?
Is it accepting? I think there's two different things. I think there's like the big two, like the mainstream stuff, and I think it's the indie. And I really only concern myself with indie. I think part of the problem with a lot of discussions that people are bringing these big two conversations into indie creators, and it's like, but you're talking about those guys up there, right? Like when you're talking about like, not paying your artists or not crediting your artists, stuff like that. You're really talking about like, I'm sure it happens, but largely these are like no-nos in the indie community. Like these are things that like you can't do this. So who are you talking to, really?
Right.
Essentially.
Now, so if that's the case, if Domino is you, who the hell was Bone Crusher?
Bone Crusher. Bone Crusher is it's not a one-to-one with anybody. It's kind of just a force. It's kind of just like like whoever. It's the institution of the gatekeepers.
Right.
Essentially, yeah.
That's what I perceived. Basically, dicking the entire corporation in Tap or Die to be.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? So if we're looking at it, and just to get into it, of course, the last issue, we get introduced to a very young, talented wrestler by the name of Domino, who has set himself on fire in the scene of wrestling and
Yeah.
is taking the world by storm. And so much so, he's basically banging on the door of the corporation, be like, yo, give me the biggest matches you got.
Yeah.
I guarantee you I'll be able to handle that shit.
Yeah.
All in all, you know, there's a love interest, of course, with Iris, but he gets his wish, but there's a cost.
Yeah,
Of,
exactly.
of course, because of some of the more veterans of the sport, they've had the opportunity to voice their opinions on him and
Yeah.
basically telling him that he should wait his turn. You know,
That's effectively it. Yep.
like basically your time will come. And he was like, bro, what if bro, I can get hit by a car tomorrow? Why
Yeah.
my time got to be tomorrow?
Exactly.
When I can do this shit right now. So with a lot of persistence, of course, he gets the match that he wants. And a nice little cliffhanger, if anybody has read issue 1, is the fact that there's a little bit of a good augmented reality science fiction feel at the end of that first issue, which is sitting right here behind me, by the way.
It's nice.
And man, let me tell you, Domino gets his ass handed to him. So it's almost to the point where like you're looking at the issue, be like, you know what? Ever so often, you know, we may be feeling full of ourselves, young, full of vigor, and I get put on our ass every once in a while. Just so the second issue brings into the motion of how can you fight back from that?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly.
how do you feel like the rebound of Domino is set up in this second issue?
Well, because essentially you can't, I mean, you know, he got it's almost like Rocky. It's almost like Rocky, right? Like the rookie gets the champion fight and then he gets his ass kicked. Like there's no glory. But you can't go back to fight Creed again. You gotta work your way back, and there's gonna be minor adversaries in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're setting up. We're setting up the in-between. We're setting up the people that are going to be in his way to fight Randy, to fight the big bad of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's super exciting. It's super exciting. Anytime you can introduce new characters, I think there's three major characters that we introduce, and anytime you could do that and make an impression, it's gonna be good. And I think the characters do make a big impression.
That's true because of course, you know, basically being handed himself on a silver platter. He comes back into Tapadai's corporation, and he almost feels like, in a sense, do I sit here and eat crow? Because he's not really like answering anybody back. You know,
Yeah,
he has a conversation with Dick, and he's just like, it was like you just gotta make sure you don't touch any of my wrestlers outside of the ring again.
yes,
You're gone.
yeah,
And he doesn't say anything. He just turns his back, walks right out.
yeah,
Like it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like I did it. I got the match I wanted, and you set me up. Cool, you got that one.
yeah,
You know, like it is what it is. But when he gets into the locker room, you could tell that there's already this perceived notion about him,
yeah.
and it's resonated through the other wrestlers in the corporation. So then you basically get introduced to a couple of boundaries and barriers that are in his way,
Adversaries.
namely Pride and Pest.
Yes.
Pride seems to be the one more so because he's undefeated, 18-0,
Yeah.
and it looks like just because and the thing is, what I loved about this is like, you know, he didn't even have to say anything to anybody.
Yeah.
He pissed them off so much in the locker room without the use of any type of verbalization, any type of dialogue. It was like, fuck that guy. I want to hurt him even more.
Yeah, exactly.
So they start making fun of his locker. They start tossing everything up. Iris pretty much has to come in there and restrain him from even doing anything bad because she knows that he'll get kicked out of the organization.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
well, yeah,
oh, go ahead. Nah, go ahead.
Yeah, essentially like it's like Dick is stacking the deck against Domino.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so now he has to be more
Reserved.
reserved, more political with how he goes about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially it.
But even without even like speaking, Pride wants a match.
Right, yeah, well, because he beat up Bone Crusher, who would be a respected member. So it's like a narrative is being spun, and this is also true of comics.
Mm-hmm.
And goes back to comics. I'll have one conversation with one person. It becomes to get the telephone game, and it's like this person hears this person hears this person, and then you hear it's just completely like transformed from what the original context was. You'll end up having arguments with people or people blocking you out of nowhere because of something they heard because of hearsay, and that's what happened here.
Mm. And so even just in that context, you got a veteran in the game, but because of the fact that he's in an alliance, he's one of them.
Yes.
And we all, it's kind of like that school, that elementary school battle would be like, oh, if I'm not friends with him, you can't be friends with him. That type of deal.
Somewhat. They're only getting so much information. And somebody pointed out that like Donald's not really a good person in the first issue. Like he's kind of a dickhead.
He is.
Yeah, so it's like we're seeing his perspective, and he did get like screwed over, but also he wasn't flawless. I mean, one of my favorite parts you realize is that he gave Bone Crusher a lacerated kidney, and he doesn't even think twice about it. Like he's just so focused on his goal. So it's like he's not blameless. You know what I'm saying? He's got some stuff going on too.
Does it come to a head where you have a character like his that lacks a little bit of empathy towards the fact of how he was in the first issue or anything like that, and coming to the realization that take for instance that episode where him and Iris are back at his place and she finally sees his room,
Yeah,
like, and he tore it apart, punched holes in the
yeah,
walls, wrecked the entire joint, but it's more so he's still in that mode to where I have to get back to this top place, but there's empathy for the people that basically he may have hurt on the way.
yeah. I mean, he's gonna. I mean, that's an interesting thought. He definitely. It is definitely the. I mean, essentially the question is like he's going to get revenge, and he's self-destructing. Like, will he self-destruct before he gets his revenge? Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fork in the road. He can become a worse person and achieve his goals, where he can become a better person, and not that's the crux of the series. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have a person like Dick who basically runs the entire corporation. What's his angle? Because we don't necessarily have an entire backstory on what brought him to power.
Yeah, Dick is the commissioner. He's like he's been a commissioner for a long time. He's got a lot of history, but Dick is essentially just trying to protect his fighters, and he's also trying to like
Protect his
he
brand.
knows he protect his brand, but it also he's also like this is good. This is good for. It's almost like in the NBA when Michael Jordan came, they're like, oh, we have to like market this star. We have to change the rules to help. And then for a wrestler, it's like we have to change the rules to hinder him. We have to stack the deck to make him more marketable, to make more money, essentially.
True. And then even in that context, like you're looking at it from the standpoint that if and when there is like a particular end goal, if Randy is the main person that he has to go after, Dick as a corporation has all the motivation and the power to make sure that that doesn't happen. And also, even in tow, the love interest, Iris is
Yeah.
niece. I
Yes.
mean, even though she almost had to convince him, hey, I wasn't a part of it. Hey, I wasn't a part of it. You got to understand me. Trust me. Believe me. Hey, I wasn't a part of it. It's
Yeah.
almost like he can understand that for the time being, but who's to say later on down the line if they're in cahoots?
I mean, that's a question, right? That is a question, and that was something I thought about. Is like, okay, there needs to be distrust, but how does he trust her again? And that's when the decision of her stopping the fight comes in. It's like, obviously she's trying to help him out and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you surprised to learn that was Dick's niece?
I was surprised to learn that.
Okay.
Because I did not get that from the first issue. So it was like when that was brought out, it was like, okay, there's more at play here than what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we you always want like interesting dynamics, right? That's what you want, and that is a twist. Like that you see them talking at the in the first issue, and then yeah, it's like okay, that's her uncle. It also it puts her in an interesting spot,
Right.
essentially it puts her in an interesting spot. It also gives her a certain level of power that most wrestlers don't.
Yeah, and it almost gives up the opportunity that like there's a way to funnel information to Dick and the corporation
It's possible.
if he wanted to. So there's definitely a lot of play there.
Man. It's possible. Iris is one of my favorite characters to write. You you don't when I think of what I would want out of a female friend, that's what I write Iris as.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's smart, sexy, she'll hook up with you,
She's
like
definitely carefree.
yeah, exactly. She's fun, but she's emotionally intelligent. She has depth. And I wanted something that was like eye candy, and she's fun, but she also, yeah, she has that emotional depth. She has that emotional intelligence, and she's kind of like exactly what Domino needs when they meet. Like she's more fun and carefree. He's super serious,
Yeah.
and that they're a good pair. And I she is an attractive character, but you also want to do something interesting. You don't want to she's not just eye candy. That's something I'm very proud of. The dynamic is going to shift, and where the character is headed, I'm very excited to unravel.
Yeah, and I can only imagine because now Dick is playing the role of basically showrunner, and
Yeah,
now we gotta get Domino in the fighting shape again because Pride wants a match, and there's a still cage match to be made, and it looks like Dick's hands are tied.
yes, exactly. So 100%. So it's about Domino is now being more crafty with how he goes about it. He wants the fight, but he can't get the fight, so he goads Pride into a fight, and then he goes and then he makes it happen. So now he's using his brain. Now he's fighting with his head, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um.
but it seemed as though like almost at the end that like Pride was owed a favor.
Oh well, he said like I'm gonna go back home. Essentially, what happened, and I mean, hopefully it's communicated, is that there was a specific amount of spots for the cage match.
Yeah.
Winner of the cage match goes to the Division One, which is like where Randy is,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain amount of spots. So what Pride was saying is, I'll go on a trip, I'll go back home, and he'll get the spot either way. So he forced Dick's hand essentially.
Right. So that even so, like I think I remember you telling me like this is like a 5 to 6 issue series that you wrote for this.
No, I mean maybe I said that at the time, but I can't imagine I said that. Like I'm, you know, like there's a bit. Hold on, did I cut out? Oh, I'm good. I'm
Huh?
good.
Good.
No, there is a bit of a commercial element here, right?
Right.
Because if a series is going great on
And
Kickstarter,
that's the thing. Like I was like, okay, with this particular type of series and this particular type of genre and the way that this genre is polarized and popular, there's so much you can do with it.
there's a lot you can do. So right now, I mean, shit, it just got funded in one day. I mean, this shit might never end. No, that's not true. But I'm
And
thinking like you can make adjustments, you can fit in, you can show size. There's stuff you can do. Right now, I'm picturing it like 12 to 15. I got it mapped out. I got the story in mind, like the overall story, and it's gonna be phenomenal. I can't wait to get to the end. Um, I feel like there is a stigma
Mhm.
with wrestling, and I think it's a wonderful sport for storytelling, and I want to bring great storytelling to wrestling. And I know Dual Powerbomb is fantastic. You know,
It is.
that is fantastic. I think that was only 4 issues though, right? Like it was
It
like
was.
5. It was a short run. I
Yeah.
want something that's like longer, more long form, and to really deliver some incredible stories. Right. Like I said, right now it'd be 12, 15. I gotta see what are people liking, like what are people thinking about the series. But I just wrote the 6th issue of this, you know. And I think we're going for at least 12 right now.
Okay. Oh, what would you say? Okay, so when the first campaign ended, what was the reception that you received, of course, from Tap or Die One?
People really enjoyed it. People really enjoyed it. That was the one. This and Intrusive Thoughts were the ones that people were really like, "Oh, this was really good." And you could see when I'm on Twitter, people are like, "Oh, Tap or Die." Tap or Die is the one that they really enjoy, and I think there's good reason. I think it's my best book. I think Tap or Die 1 was my best book. I think it looks fantastic. I think it's a coming together of a lot of different stuff. Like when I look at Decay and Gods of Dead and Intrusive Thoughts, there's stuff I would definitely change.
Right.
You know, these are my. But with Tap or Die, more or less like no, I wouldn't change much. I would maybe tighten some things up, but I wouldn't do any major changes or change anything really. So I think it's a fully realized. I think also Emilio is really good. Emilio Rutera, who
I
did
was about to say, like, your creative team for Tap or Die was top notch. Like
he's
this
really
cover's
good.
thick.
Damiano Estevo, he's amazing too. He's doing American Yakuza with us. Emilio is good at making the action dynamic, which is good. That's great, you know. But he's also good at making the speech, the dialogue dynamic. There's a lot of things in here that weren't written to be framed. This is a bit of a I don't know. I'm a huge Judd Apatow fan. That's when I realized I wanted to start writing when I saw Superbad. And going into high school. So I was talking about that. And it was Seth Rogen talking about Craig Robinson in Pineapple Express, and he was like, it was that one line where I forgot the other guy's name. It was the guy from I don't know, I don't remember his name, but he was like, you know, I don't want to smoke weed because my wife will smell it. My clothes. He was like, "Do you want my jacket?" And the guy was like, "It's not my style." And he was like, "You ain't got no style, motherfucker." And Seth Rogen was like, Craig will take a line that's not well written and make it really funny. I feel like Emilio will take moments that aren't particularly visually dynamic on the page and make them super dynamic. There's that scene where Bone Crusher is standing over Domino. And that's just so like it could have been so easy just to phone it in, but he really took it and turned it to 11. And I think Tapper died too. It looks like really good too. Like I think he did a lot of that. So because for me, I enjoyed dialogue is my favorite part of a lot of stuff, but it's a comic book.
Yeah.
So you have to pick your spots. You have to pick when, and so when we pick those spots, it has to be dynamic. And I think he did a good job.
Now, do you feel like the communication between yourself as a writer and a person like Emilio as an artist, less is more is always better?
It depends. It really depends, especially because a lot of the artists I work with, English is if it's a language they speak, it's a second language. Like, you know, so you do want to keep it simple. And a lot of times you'll have some complicated thing and they'll be like, what about this? And it's approximate. You're like, okay, cool. I'm not going to sit here and like muddy up I'm not going to like, you know, we can't fully understand each other. I'm not about to make it a pain. Right. I value vibes and collaboration a lot. Now, that said, there are things where it's like, this is the way things have to be done. There are moments that are like, no, we got to do it this way. Right. You know, but I think me and Emilio it's the sign of an artist I like to work with is when I have a change or like something isn't, because stuff changes from sketch to ink, you know. They'll make changes sometimes. Some artists is 1-to-1, but some artists make changes when I'm like, yo, can you change this? If they're respectful and they're, you know, willing to do the changes in earnest, then that's an artist you want to work with.
Now, we talked about it earlier because I remember we spoke about it before we started. about the nuances of Kickstarter for somebody that puts out multiple projects during the course of a year.
Yes.
Like yourself.
Yes.
Um, you would like to see elements of Kickstarter that of course are a little bit more at ease to the person that's putting the project together.
Yeah, no, less Paleolithic, I would say. Like, so for those who don't know, I mean, I'm sure most people do. When you make a campaign, there's a story, which is like the stuff that the customer sees. There's the
Yep.
rewards, there's the add-ons, and
Mhm.
essentially Kickstart. There's items too. Also items. Whenever this is new, this is a new feature. Whenever you make a reward tier, you have to include the items.
Mhm.
Kickstarter does not let you carry stuff over from campaign to campaign. So when I build the K5, I can't just take the K4 and just copy and paste it over a lot of stuff over. I have to re-enter everything. And it's super time consuming and super annoying. And of course, you make mistakes because you're not taking this thing that you already had right from the K4. You're having to enter all this stuff in. And I shit you not, it took me 10 hours to make this campaign.
And for
Like,
somebody that's doing multiple projects like yourself, it's definitely not the case of being user friendly.
it's not user friendly, yeah. And I'm on the. I mean, I definitely do more Kickstarters than most people for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not on the level of like Bad Bug or Pat Shand or like these guys that are doing this like monthly. You know, like because
Mhm.
Pat will tell you. And I have a lot of titles. I have a lot of titles. I have like 11 issues of comic books available. So you think that if I were to do all the with a lot of variants, at least 3 variants, and in PDFs, so you're looking at 50 add-ons right there. You know, if I did everything, and I don't put everything up there, and maybe I would if I didn't have to enter it in manually every time. You know.
Mm. No, that definitely makes sense, especially like for somebody that's just starting out. They're not gonna understand it until they get to that second issue. To be like, yo, if I keep on doing this like repeatedly and going over it time and time again,
Yeah.
like this, then who knows? You might succumb to it. Be like, yo, I'm not doing Kickstarter anymore, and then they're looking for another outlet because there now is about like three other outlets that you can do crowdfunding on.
Is there?
Eh, Yeah, what was it? Charlie
There's
Kelly,
Zoop,
Zoop, this crowdfunder,
crowdfunder,
and the always
Fund My
pretentious
Comic,
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. I mean, there's other crowdfunding sites, but I mean, I don't know. They're
Those are the
like
ones that comics people that do comics essentially move to.
there is, but they just don't have the base. They don't. I mean, if you're, I think the appeal for those sites is like we're not Kickstarter, and anytime the appeal of something is we're not a different thing, I just don't. I just don't. I think that's dubious.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like Pepsi isn't. We're not. I mean, maybe it's a bad example, but like I don't know. Like
It's good to say we're not Coke. It'd be
we're
like,
not Coke.
what's so different about y'all then? Just not
I don't
Coke.
know. That wasn't a great example, but there's a lot of stuff like a lot of media that only functions to not be another piece of media, and it's like I mean, people make comics like that too. Like, oh, this isn't Superman. It's like, why don't you tell me what it is? Like, why don't
Right.
you make something that you're enthusiastic about? And you can make stuff in a response to other stuff, but I feel like it's always I always find that it's like with rappers, like the rappers that are like nobody else is good at rapping. Like I hate mumble rap, so I'm gonna make a diss track, and it's like you only exist. This only appeals to me if I hate mumble rap. Essentially,
Mhm.
this doesn't appeal to me if I like anything. What about what I like? Why are you selling this on something that I would hate? You know, I guess is my point.
Definitely. Now, as far as the projects, because this is once again when we usually do this, it's usually
Yeah,
it's usually January or maybe February. As far as Anthony Stokes, the writer, and the
yeah,
projects that he's putting out this year, you
yeah,
are in a particular spot because you have your individual books that you're going to be putting out. Now you have
yeah.
collaborations that are pretty much going to happen too. Of course, with
Yes,
the collaboration that you're going to be doing with Chris Moses pretty soon. Actually, you have a few of them.
yes.
Pat
Me
Shan,
and Pat Shan,
Charlie
yeah,
McKelvey.
yeah, yeah. Charlie McKelvey, yeah. And some other stuff, man. It's been nice that I could carve out because, like, it didn't feel like it. I'm not gonna say I was ready to quit. I'll never say I was ready to quit, but I definitely was like, I was like, I just don't know if I'm gonna get the opportunities, and then the opportunities started presenting themselves for my friends,
Mm-hmm.
because you really Kickstarter is phase one to me. Kickstarter is phase one. The cons are another phase. The direct market is another phase. Work for hire is another phase. I want to do a little bit of everything. And I was like, I don't know about this. And then Charlie McKelvey swoops in and is like, yo, I got this thing, American Yakuza. And then it seemed like after that, maybe I started asking for stuff, or maybe things just opened up. Maybe people just had me in mind for certain. I don't know. But I got to give credit to Pat and Charlie, really, McKelvey, for really opening. Pat specifically got me a job at a con. Like, he walked up and was like, you should hire this guy, and he did. The person did. So shouts out to Pat.
Yeah. I mean, it's always like, what is it? There's a saying, if somebody wants to do something good for you, it's okay to accept it.
Oh, for sure. And it's a shame, man, because I can say this here, like, it's a shame because there's a lot of Black indie publishers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be on shit. They'll make empty promises. Like, I had a publishing deal that was just dried up. I was like suggested I would be getting a sum of money.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you want to keep it. I'll work, y'all. Anybody wants to pay me, I'll work with them. But ideally, you'd want to keep it in your own community or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, damn, I got to go to with the white boys get paid. This shit crazy. So it's like, it's unfortunate, man, but it is what it is.
Or, well, bro, it's only the first day in this campaign, and I can imagine how big this is going to get. For anybody that has, because now, you know what I'm saying, now that we've been doing this so long, you have multiple projects. So it's like, if anybody wanted to get their hands on any of those projects, whether it was Decay, Intrusive Thoughts, Tap or Die,
keep going.
You know what I'm saying? Like how can they get in touch with you?
Kickstarter, man. I don't have a website. I'm all in on the Kickstarter thing. So if you search Tap or Die 2 on Kickstarter, it'll pull up, and you can get the entire catalog.
Man, we gotta get you a Shopify or something.
Bro, you just gotta think it's just more money in it. Like, here's the way I look at it. Truthfully, I can put 20% of my attention in 5 different places, or I can put 100% of my attention on one place.
Okay.
And the reality is that through Kickstarter, I can release when I want. I have a huge, basically, like, one of the biggest reader bases available. And it's relatively cheap. Like, 10% max is a max that Kickstarter and I guess Visa or Stripe will take away from your campaign.
Yeah.
For me to
need
like
a little service fee. Yep.
Never, like, if I go, plus I got a lot of books, bro. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. I have a website, but I only have 3. Every time I add something, I have to pay for it. So okay. For me, like I said, it's like, why? One thing I've always pushed back against is, like, don't tell me, not the chain you said is, but don't tell me I need to do something because that's what's always been done. Because I don't care. That's not an argument for why I should do something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me what. And the upside of a website, bro, like, because I have a website and I would hand out cards. I stopped handing out cards at cons because nobody, like, it would get us. If I was at a con table for 2 days,
mm-hmm.
and I handed out 200 cards, I might get 5 visitors to my website. Who cares? Like, it just doesn't. And then what? You got to pay for hosting fees and stuff like that.
Right.
Nah, man. Like, I'm cool with leaving that money on the table because the amount I'm getting from Kickstarter is just better. It's just it's just better, man. And also, really, I'm my interest right now is in creation. Literally, I want to make the book, put it on Kickstarter, and I'll do cons. I'll do cons too. Yeah. I do like doing cons, and that is a good source because I was like.
You get to work on your hustle out there, man.
Because December, there's a con in my city or close to my city, like it's in Hampton, Virginia, and it's one day, it's one day, and in that one day I can make $800. I can make $900, $700, $1,000. They didn't have that, so come December, I'm almost broke, like because I can't go to cons no more. So
Right.
now cons are coming back, and that's more bread. But I'm really focused on just making better series and making more series, and I think what's coming out. Is gonna be fantastic. Like 2023, I pretty much worked all year, and the I worked on so many new series. I think I have 4 new series dropping this year, if not more.
Right.
And so I just want to focus on that, man, because you gotta think every series needs some damn variant covers. Like,
And no, that's true.
I
So
gotta spend 20 hours building the campaign. Like so.
So what's the next one? What we got up next?
The next one, it's called "It's Fun to Kill People," and this one I'm really excited about. It's about the son of 2 serial killers, and he just tries his best to go on about his day. It's like a Calvin and Hobbes meets Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. It's like going to be like short, 2 to 4 page shorts, like a collection of shorts, essentially.
Like vignettes.
Vignette, yeah, exactly. Vignettes that'll be put into one issue. And I'm really excited because I love comedy. Like when I sit down on a day off, I want to watch something that is raunchy with dick jokes and like raunchy sex comedies like Super Bad, American Pie. Or I want to watch something that just makes me feel demoralized and fucking depressed. Like, so I want to put on a David Cronenberg movie or some shit like that. So the idea of making comedy is very exciting to me. It's very appealing to me. Like very, very appealing.
Is that next month?
No, probably March. Okay. Yeah. That's it. And then a month after that, is EC #2, and then American Yakuza and all that
coming out after that. Yo.
Yeah, I'm excited. Very excited.
So, well, bro, it's always good to have you on. I appreciate you as always for reaching out to me. I know, you know what I'm saying? We've been doing this a long time since your first issue of Decay. So, man, it's excellent to see you still just thriving out here. 11 books in.
Man, we gotta keep it going, man. We gotta keep, so it's a must stop.
Word up. Word up. So for Anthony Stokes, James Grandmaster Facts Boys, Tap or Die 2 is still live on Kickstarter for the next 23 days, correct?
22 days, yep.
22 days now. So go out there, get that, get the variants, do what you can. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. After all, it's already funded. So for everybody here at the FAQs Project, thank you. And we are out.